Do you want to know my top fat loss hacks that I myself used to go from this to this? I've lost 30 pounds and built the lean, toned body of my dreams that I've been able to easily maintain for years now. And this hasn't just worked for me. I've used it on tons of women of all different ages and backgrounds to help them lose anywhere from 15 pounds all the way up to 40 pounds while also getting lean, toned, and shapely underneath and maintaining these results for life. So if you want to know how to lose fat for good and build that sexy, feminine toned body, stay tuned because I'm going to share my top fat loss hacks with you in today's video. What's going on, Fit Fam? Welcome on back to my channel. My name is Megan Janice. I'm an online nutrition and fitness coach for women, and I teach ladies just like you how to eat more food instead of less and work out smarter instead of harder so you can build that beautiful, toned, sexy hourglass body you dream of having and maintain it year-round for life with ease. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Come follow me over on Instagram for even more fitness content. And if you're coming on back, thanks so much for joining for another video. Okay, fam, how do we lose weight, aka body fat, get lean and toned, and stay that way for good? Well, in order to lose a significant amount of weight or body fat, let's say anywhere from at least 10 pounds, but more so 15 to 30, 40 pounds, you are going to need to implement a calorie deficit at a point. And instead of focusing just on calories, you actually want to focus on macros, protein, fats, and carbs. All calories are made up of these macros, but the role of each of these macros is really important and distinct in the way that you look and feel. So that lean, toned body you want to have is a body with less fat, but it's also a body with lots of muscle underneath, because if you don't have muscle underneath, you are not going to look toned, firm, tight, and shapely. So that is where the macros becomes really important, and also lifting weights. So in order to lose fat and keep it off, you definitely need to be doing both of these things. You need to, at a point, get into a calorie deficit with specific macro targets, not only calories, and you need to be lifting weights a few days a week, at least 3 to 4 times. And ideally that you are really doing this with challenging weights and really pushing yourself to get strong. Now, if you're not sure what a lifting plan should look like or what your macros should look like specifically for your body and goals, you can check out the videos in the link in the description or right here where I break down exactly how to do that custom to you. Now, in addition to having a calorie deficit with specific macro targets and lifting weights, another element of being in a calorie deficit to lose as much body fat as possible is to increase your overall movement so that you can increase your calorie deficit and you're going to further along your fat loss progress. So this is why when we're in a deficit, when we're in a fat loss phase, we're also going to do a little bit of cardio and or have a higher step count, because essentially there are 2 ways to create a deficit. You can decrease food or you can increase activity, and the best way is to do a combination of both. Now, usually in a fat loss phase, what I do and what we do with all of our clients is going to be anywhere from 2 up to 4, maybe maximum 5 30-minute low-intensity steady-state cardio sessions per week. And what I mean by that is doing a form of steady-state cardio, meaning something where you're keeping a consistent pace. My favorites being the Stairmaster or incline treadmill. The reason that I prefer those two is because the machine is forcing you to keep the pace, so you're not going to kind of subconsciously speed up or slow down depending on your personal energy levels. Let's say you don't have access to either of those machines. You can also do a stationary bike, you can do elliptical, or you can just go out for an old-fashioned jog. But it's definitely best if you can do, especially the Stairmaster. This one is the most effective for burning the most amount of calories in a given session. Now, you want to hit a zone 2 level with your cardio, meaning it's a notch above, essentially kind of walking fast on a flat surface. So this is going to put your heart rate somewhere in between 130 to 150 beats per minute. So I'm going to give some of my top hacks around cardio as we get into my list. And then the last thing you must do in order to lose fat and keep it off for good is you have to be tracking data. You need to be weighing in every single morning, first thing, before eating or drinking anything, after using the washroom, and naked ideally, or at least always in the exact same amount of clothes so that it's not going to influence the data. Then you want to actually keep track of your weight in an actual graph, because the single individual weigh-ins each day doesn't matter, but the trend of the weigh-ins over time is what matters, because it's showing us how your body is overall trending. And when we're in a calorie deficit, when we're trying to lose weight aka lose body fat, we do obviously want to see an overall downward trend happening. If that is happening, you know that your fat loss is working, your protocols are good for your body, and you can continue following them. But if you are perfectly adherent with your protocols, meaning you are hitting your macros dead on 6 days a week within 5 grams plus or minus of each macro, you're doing all your lifting and really training hard, you're doing your cardio, you're doing your steps, and you haven't hit a new low in 2 to 3 weeks, that is when you would either make a drop in your food or you would increase your cardio or steps, or a combination of both of them. Now, you also need to be taking weekly progress photos, because some of the time the scale is not always going to be moving the exact way we think it should, but when we look at your photos, we're going to be able to see a really big difference in your physique. For example, this is my client here who weighs exactly the same in both pictures, before and after, but obviously she's looking so much leaner, so much more toned after we have gone into her deficit for a few months. So if we were only going by the scale, we would think, scale weight is exactly the same here, but when we look at pictures, we can see a huge difference to her body composition, meaning how much fat she's lost and how much muscle she's gained. Okay, so you must be doing all of these factors, following specific macros that are a calorie deficit custom for your body and goals, lifting weights a few days per week and training hard, continuing to progress at the lifts that you're doing your cardio and or steps, and then tracking your progress, and then making decisions on when and if to change your protocols based on how your body's responding to what you're doing, assuming of course you have perfect adherence. Now, all of this is a lot of information, so if you want to have your hand held, you don't want to have to figure this all out on your own. You know that you need guidance, you know that you need support. That's exactly why we have this amazing online one-to-one coaching program where we have helped so many women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even their 60s to lose plenty of weight and build a sexy, strong, toned body for good. So if you're interested in getting our one-to-one support, you can click on the link in the description, fill out an application, and we would love to chat to see if you'd be a good fit. Okay, so now that you know what you need to be doing to be in a calorie deficit and to see that fat loss happening, I want to share the top hacks that I myself have discovered in my current fat loss phase that has really made being in a calorie deficit and cutting for many months at a time a whole lot easier to adhere to. So I am just about to come up on 4 months of being in a cut after not cutting for an entire year, spending all of 2024 focusing just on being in a bulk, aka being in a muscle building phase, trying to put on shape and size, which went really great. I was super happy with my results by the end of the build, but coming into 2025, I decided, okay, it's been a little while that I haven't cut and I'm ready to trim down some of the fluff and reveal all of that sexy muscle underneath that I have worked so hard to achieve. So this is my current progress. I am down 8 pounds in 4 months. So yes, you can see that it takes time to really lean out. Now, of course, this is coming from someone who didn't have a ton of body fat to lose. You can definitely lose more body fat if you have more body fat to lose. But in my case, I'm trying to get into the high 120 pounds. So my goal for my cut is to finish at 128 pounds, maybe push it to around 125 pounds. So I started at 141 pounds. My current lowest weigh-in in my cut so far has been 133. So I want to lose at least another 5 pounds and maybe push it a little bit past that to achieve my goal for this overall cut, which probably means it's going to take me about another 2 months to achieve that result. And that's normal, by the way. I find you're usually going to have to cut for minimum 4 months. And a lot of the time it's going to be closer to 6 and even as much as like 8, 9, 10 months. It really depends how much weight you have to lose and how good you're feeling and how much you want to push your cut to just keep losing as much weight as you can. Okay, so since we are eating less food and we are moving more on top of that, it is normal that in a cut, you are going to feel definitely kind of hungry and you obviously are a bit restricted with your calories. So the question is, how can you still adhere to your protocols, eating a little bit less food, not having as much fat, as many carbs to play with, but how can you still hit those protocols, still lose the weight that you want to without being absolutely miserable? So these are my top 6 hacks that I have found in the last few months of doing my cut as my calories have been decreasing and my cardio has been increasing. And since implementing these little tweaks, honestly, my cutting has become a lot easier. So let's run through what these top 6 hacks are. Hack number 1 is pushing back your breakfast kind of as long as you can, because if you wait to start eating your food for the day, this is naturally going to help you not be as hungry throughout the day. And honestly, I don't find it that hard to wait a little bit to start eating my meal. I actually still feel pretty good, pretty energized for the first few hours of my day. So that is something I would definitely recommend implementing. Now, maybe you can have a little something. For example, if you are a coffee drinker and you have like a latte in the morning, you could do that, and that will definitely give you a little bit of calories from the milk and sugar, whatever you have in there. And personally, that's what I am doing. I'm usually starting my day off with 1 decaf oat milk latte. So that's kind of giving me a little bit of calories to sustain myself for a couple of hours. And then on top of that, I'm just drinking a lot of water. And then later I'm going to eat my breakfast. Versus when I'm not cutting, I would not wait to eat like this. In fact, especially when I'm in a building phase, I have to eat so much food that I have to eat really first thing in the morning. So it's kind of just a completely different strategy when you're trying to cut, when you're trying to lose, because you don't have as many calories. So you do have to think, how can I get creative and stretch my calories as much as possible? So definitely pushing back your breakfast as long as you can is the way to go. Now, talking about lattes and essentially all liquid calories, that brings me to my second hack, which is to be mindful of drinking your calories. So since you are in this calorie deficit, we do not have so many calories that we can kind of waste away on liquid calories, because when you drink your calories, you are not going to be as full and satiated for as long. So once your calories start to drop a bit, this is one of the first things you really want to change, because since you're not able to eat as much, you really do want to be using your calories on food that is going to keep you as full as possible for longer, and foods that you can eat, especially lower calorie, higher volume foods like fruits, vegetables, oats, potatoes, rice, and meat, that kind of stuff is where you want to be spending your calories. Now, before I was cutting, or even in the early stages of my cut when I still had more food, I was having anywhere from 2 to 3 lattes per day. But a latte has honestly a lot of milk in it. And once I was having 3 lattes a day, that was easily taking up about 600 calories and as much as 50 grams of carbs. So that is a lot. Let's say if you're only having maybe 150 to 200 grams of carbs a day, you don't really want to be spending a quarter to a third of your carbs literally just on lattes. Now, I want to make a disclaimer and say, you can do this so long as you're not feeling super hungry and miserable. But I did have a recent calorie drop, and I noticed I was starting to get a lot hungrier. And so I had to be honest with myself and say, okay, you know what? I'm gonna have to stop having so many lattes and instead switch over to having Americanos. And I have been amazed by how much better I feel and how much more food I get to eat with this one simple hack. So the thing is, black coffee or tea is literally 0 calories. You do not have to worry about it at all. So if you're somebody who can drink your coffee or tea or whatever totally black, then you don't even need to track it. And honestly, this is a huge advantage for you. But if you're like myself and you hate black coffee, you need at least a little bit of milk, a little bit of sugar, then I would recommend switching over to Americanos at least, because then you can be in control of how much milk and sugar you put into the drink, and you can add just a little bit. So for example, in a latte, I was thinking it was about 200 milliliters of milk. And now when I order an Americano, I have the oat milk on the side, and I'm only adding in about 50 milliliters of oat milk. So that makes a big difference, literally 25% of the calories that I used to be having on a latte. Now, in addition to just minimizing the amount of calories you're having in your milk, cream, or sugar that you add into your coffee or tea, another good thing about drinking black tea, black coffee is that it does also help to suppress your appetite. So if you're getting hungry in your deficit and you don't want to spend all your calories, or you don't have any more calories to spend, just drinking 0 calorie beverages is a great way to help keep you full and satiated. So having black coffee, black tea, or you can also have sparkling water. That's something that I drink a lot of when I'm cutting, because since there's that carbonation, it helps keep me fuller for longer. You can also do diet sodas or Coke Zero, Diet Coke, etc. I personally just don't enjoy the taste of those, but you can absolutely have them if it's something you enjoy, because it's 0 calories. Okay, this brings me to my third hack, which is to make your meals primarily single ingredient whole foods, and especially to watch out for oils and butter, because when you're cutting, you're gonna see you really do not have that many fats to eat. For example, right now my fats are down to 50 grams a day, and if you are not careful, you will very easily surpass this amount of fat and still have a ton of carbs and protein to eat. So a recent hack that I made to my breakfast, which honestly I've been amazed how simple of a hack this is, but how profound of a difference it's made for me, is to go from having scrambled or fried eggs to having poached eggs in the morning, because poached eggs are boiled, meaning that they are not going to have any butter, any oil used in the process of cooking them. Now, I go to work in a cafe every single morning, and luckily the cafe I go to here allows me to order a very a la carte breakfast. So this is usually what I'm having every single day. I'll order anywhere from 2 to 3 poached eggs. I'll also get some salmon on the side, a little bit of mushrooms, and the mushrooms are fried in a little bit of butter, so I do account for that when I'm tracking my macros. And then sometimes I'm also getting a piece of sourdough, which I also put a little bit of butter on. Now, that's another thing I would say. If you can fit a piece of bread into your macros and you end up still feeling full and good by the end of the day, then go for it. But if you're noticing that you're getting really hungry and you feel like you're running out of your calories, I would say you unfortunately should skip the bread and instead eat a higher volume carb, because bread unfortunately is a pretty dense source of calories. So you're gonna be able to stretch your carbs a lot further if you're having something like fruit, oats, rice, potatoes instead. However, I have found that by pushing back my breakfast a couple of hours, I end up still feeling okay by the end of the day, eating this breakfast and having a little bit of sourdough. So you really do want to think of your meals this way, as kind of these individual small ingredients and combining the meal together that way. So for example, for my dinner as well, I'm having steak that I'm going to cook in a little bit of butter, and then I'm having broccoli and rice with it and adding a chutney sauce on top. So I'm doing each ingredient, each component of the meal separately, and just being cautious to not have too much fat or too much sauce, because that's the thing that's gonna push you over the edge, when really you don't need a whole lot to give your food a lot of flavor. And saving those little bits of fats and carbs here and there is really going to add up and allow you to have a much more enjoyable deficit, where you still feel like you get to enjoy your meals without going way too far over on your calories. Which brings me to hack number 4, which essentially is to still eat similar meals to what you always enjoy, but just have slightly smaller portion sizes since you are cutting. So this is the thing that I love about macros, is technically you can have whatever you want as long as it fits your macros. So you don't have to completely cut out food groups. For example, I'm still having sourdough toast in my breakfast because I enjoy it and because I'm able to fit it in. But for example, I'm not slathering a ton of butter on my sourdough, or I'm not having 2 pieces of sourdough the way that I probably would if I wasn't cutting. Instead, I'm only having 1, and I'm being pretty conservative with the amount of butter I'm putting on my sourdough. Another example is my proats, or my protein oatmeal, which is something that I really always have just because I really enjoy it. It tastes good, it's quick and easy, which is essentially just oats, oat milk, and then adding a protein powder into it. I'm also adding a little bit of collagen, and then sometimes I add a fruit or a nut butter like almond butter in, which is what I'm doing today. Now here's a good example of how I would maybe tweak this meal if I had to be more conservative with my carbs and fats. Since I'm going down to 2 poached eggs in the morning instead of 3, that gives me a little bit more fat to play with later on in the day, so that's why I'm adding almond butter into my protein oatmeal. But a lot of the time I make this meal without almond butter, and it honestly still tastes great. So this is kind of where you got to ask yourself, okay, you only have so many fat dollars and so many carb dollars to spend, and you have to think, what do you value most? Where do you want to spend those macro dollars? And what's going to make you enjoy your meals the most while still hitting your protocols to ensure that you achieve your goals? So for example, when I'm bulking or building, I literally eat double the amount of protein oatmeal that I'm eating right now. So I'm still eating the same meal, I'm just having half the normal size of the meal that I would. I literally cut the oats in half, the oat milk in half, and sometimes not always adding in a nut butter. All right, and this brings me to my 5th hack for fat loss, which is to pre-log your day of eating ahead of time in an app like MyFitnessPal. So that's the app I have always used. It's the app we use with our clients to track our macros. And honestly, if you want to guarantee you have success with your fat loss, the best thing you can do is to plan your food ahead of time. So simply take 2 minutes in the morning and plan out out what you're going to be eating for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, any coffee, any drinks like that. And then all you need to do is follow the plan because you already decided what you were going to have. You made sure that it's going to hit the macros that you need to hit to be in your calorie deficit. And now all you need to do is eat accordingly. Also, if you're somebody who doesn't mind eating similar foods day to day, this is another really good hack to just make fat loss easy. I personally eat pretty much the same thing almost every single day. Maybe I'm slightly switching out an ingredient here or there, but overall I stay really consistent with my meals just because number one, I don't really mind. I don't get bored by it. I enjoy the food that I eat. And more than anything, it's just for the simplicity of it. I don't have to think up these grand new meals every single day, which would obviously be more time consuming. So if you just want to make your fat loss journey as easy, as effortless as possible, pick a few meals that you really enjoy, make sure that they hit your macros, and then literally just rinse and repeat day to day, maybe every now and then exchanging out a few ingredients just for some variety. Okay, and this brings me to my sixth and final hack for fat loss, which is not anything to do with nutrition, which was all the other aspects of fat loss, but it actually has to do with my cardio. So like I said, in a fat loss phase, the way that we program it for clients is you're gonna have anywhere from 2 to 4 30-minute sessions per week of zone 2 low intensity steady state cardio. So like I said, I personally think the best cardio you can do is the Stairmaster. This is going to help burn the most calories. So currently where I'm at in my cut, I am doing 4 30-minute Stairmaster sessions per week. And I also lift weights 4 days per week. And what I was doing previously was that I would first do my lifting and then I would go do my 30 minutes of cardio directly afterwards. If you are going to do lifting and cardio on the same day, always make sure that you do your lifting first because you don't want to start your lifting after cardio once you've already depleted a bunch of your energy, because lifting weights is our main focus here because we are most focused on gaining and maintaining muscle so that we can be toned and we can be keeping a nice fast metabolism. So if you are going to do them back to back, that is totally fine. And this was what I was doing, but I started to notice that it would make me really dread my cardio because here I would be lifting for, maybe an hour and a half. I would be really pushing myself hard and I'd already be feeling quite beat up from my lifting session by the end of it, and then I'd be like, oh my God, now I have to go do 30 minutes of Stairmaster after I just trained legs and glutes. So what I've started to do is I've started to keep my cardio sessions completely separate from my lifting for the most part, and honestly, I am really enjoying it. What this means is that I technically don't have a complete full rest day, but I don't mind because I see just a 30-minute Stairmaster session not really as such a big deal. So since I have 3 days off from lifting, I'm doing 3 of my Stairmaster sessions on those days, and then the only day that I'm doing my 4th Stairmaster session on is my full upper body day, just because upper body is not as demanding as a lower body day, so I don't mind doing the cardio after an upper body lifting session. So personally, I'm finding this way more enjoyable because I get to go into the gym and just do a 30-minute cardio session. It whizzes by, I have the energy for it, I'm not dreading it. So if you're in a position where you can keep your sessions separate, I would recommend that. You will probably find it a lot more enjoyable if you do that. But if you can't, if the gym is like far away from you and you don't have access to any cardio equipment, you can do them back to back, but you just might find it a little bit more exhausting to do it this way. So if there's a way that you can set it up to keep them separate, I bet you will find this much more enjoyable and easy to stick to the way that I am finding it to be. All right, Fit Fam, so those are my top fat loss hacks to make your calorie deficit easier, more enjoyable, more effective, and honestly just being less hungry, less drained from it. And like I said, if you don't want to have to figure out all the pieces of your fat loss goals on your own, if you want to be guided with a custom strategy specifically for your body and goals, be told exactly what to do, be held accountable, supported and cheered on through the entire process, that's exactly what we provide inside of our one-to-one fitness coaching program. So if you're interested, click on the link in description, fill out an application, and we would love to hear from you and see if you'd be a good fit. All right, fam, so thank you so much for checking out this video. Now next, I want you to go watch this one here where I'm going to break down more about what a full-on calorie deficit looks like, how to do a cut properly, and how to set yourself up for an effective fat loss phase. So I will see you in that video.